The return of the second period nap dooms the Mammoth win streak, but that's not really the worst possible outcome.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined as always by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we're the dynamic duo that brings you Locked On Mammoth each and every single day. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen when it comes to the Utah Mammoth hockey team. Robyn, the second period nap returns. It dooms the win streak. It ends at 7. But they do go 3-1 on this road trip, and I'm going to tell some folks later in the show here why I don't think it's actually the worst thing that could have happened. So there's a lot to break down because it was 3 different periods. It was like 3 different games in this one. And we are going to do a lot of finger pointing at the second period. And believe me, we brought charts and graphs, and we're going to break this all down for you. But look, Utah gets out to a good start on the road, a 2-0 first period lead over the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton didn't do much. 5 shots. They couldn't really get things going. Robyn, I actually said this on Twitter and Blue Sky. I said this is probably the best period, most complete period Utah had played all season. I really like that first period.
It was a really good period. I mean, when you're able to keep a Edmonton team to that amount of low of shots and just to come out against them with a 2-goal lead, that's got to look good. That's going to make you feel good.
Absolutely. Heading into that locker room. By the way, today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You do feel good. You feel good because Logan Cooley scored. You feel good because JJ Peterka scored. What a shot by Peterka, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
That was incredible. And came off a hard work and a turnover. So you like to see that. They were bottling up Edmonton and frustrating the Oilers and making the Oilers look like the team that was 500 to this point in the year, that had been inconsistent, hadn't found ways to score, hadn't found ways to generate regular chances. Connor McDavid only had 1 goal coming into this game. Now, he did eventually score twice and wake up. Leon Draisaitl's getting it going. Evan Bouchard's getting it going now all of a sudden. And Robyn, the second period is where they got it going against the Mammoth. So as great as I thought Utah played in the first, if they could have played 40 more minutes like that, they're rolling out of there with a big win and a 4-0 road swing. Didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And we definitely could be talking about a whole different game if that second period turned out differently, right? That was a 5-goal second period for Edmonton. That's something that you don't want if you're, of course, an insider. And I know it sounds obvious, but I warned everyone, didn't I? I warned everybody. I said that if there's any team you do not want to be caught taking any bit of a nap on, even for 30 seconds, this was a lot longer than 30-second nap, but even for 30 seconds, you do not want to be caught napping against Edmonton Oilers because it's even beyond McDavid and Draisaitl. Anyone on that team can just be absolutely lethal.
5 goals on 15 shots in the second period. And they only had single-digit shots in the other 2 periods. They only had 26 for the game, so they had 11 in the first and third period combined. But 15 in the second period. And Robyn, it showed their quick strike ability, but it also showed there were some blown defensive coverages there. And I thought it was interesting the way they talked about it a bit on the TV broadcast. Is you could look at it a bunch of different ways. One of them was just it was bad luck that the rebounds went off the pad of Veggie right to an Edmonton shooter. One of them was Draisaitl. But I don't think it is. I don't think that's bad luck. I think that teams that score a lot of goals know where they need to be, play the percentages, put themselves in those areas, and you have to cover those players. And Utah got scrambly defensively in that second period more than a few times. And that's when guys slip loose in coverage. And I mean, right place at the right time looks like luck. But Robin, 37 seconds apart, they scored the exact same goal. Rebound off the pad, out to the far dot, boom, in the net. That's not luck. That's preparation. Edmonton does those things on purpose, and that's why they're so deadly offensively.
And it is that. I mean, that's why this team is always in, like, at least the last few years, a strong Stanley Cup contender. Right? This is a team that took Florida to 7 games in the Stanley Cup final twice.
Yeah, I mean they have not had the best start of the season. Let's say that. That's why I hoped that maybe the Mammoth could catch them before they got it going.
I know, right? We were keeping our fingers crossed, knocking on wood, doing whatever we could, praying to whoever you want to pray to that these guys don't wake up. And well, they did. And again, I don't think it's entirely on the fault of Utah for that Edmonton woke up. It is their fault that they allowed them to capitalize because of those naps.
I really do feel like, Robin, they didn't have an answer in the second period. When the momentum was going against them, they didn't have a way to stem the tide.
So Hayton's goal to get them back up, right? Hayton's goal to get them back up was, I thought, okay, maybe it'll crimp the bleeding a little bit because I'm getting a little bit worried. And then it just kept coming. And I was like, yeah, no, now this team's going to chase. And because they're chasing, this is where more of the mistakes are going to show up.
And Hayton's goal wasn't the product of anything so much as it was the giveaway from Skinner behind the net. He misplays the puck, and that's why that puck goes in. I don't think Utah was particularly generating there, but when you're in on the forecheck, good things can happen, and they did. You force the turnover out of the goalie. Okay, you take advantage. Great. But that wasn't because of prolonged zone time. That wasn't because of, great shot selection. That was a turnover.
Yeah, exactly. I think Utah felt a little bit flustered. And here's the thing: what you're noticing is when they get that little bit of fluster, they're not able to play their game. What got them through the win streak was they were able to play their game. They were able to focus on the forecheck. They were able to force the defense to the perimeter. That didn't happen this time.
And Edmonton's fast. So this is a team that's got speed. They use it. And Connor McDavid can fly. There was one, I actually felt bad for Mikhail Sergachev trying to catch him at one point there. I saw McDavid and he doesn't even look like he's trying. That's what's so not fair about it. He's so effortless and so fluid as a skater. He does not even look like he's trying. And he's just pulling away from Sergachev, who is no slouch. But that's what you're dealing with Edmonton. And that's why they have that crazy quick strike ability, Robin, and they used it here tonight. And in the third, okay, even if you have the bad second period, which they did, you now have 20 minutes to try to rectify it. They did outshoot Edmonton 9-6 in that third period, but Robin, I just can't figure out how they couldn't get themselves back to the team they were in the first period. So I guess this is part of the growth. Maybe is the best way to say this, right?
Yeah,
this is growing pains.
It is growing pains, and we are going to see that throughout this season, right? We saw the great things that this team can do during that 7-game win streak, and we were all happy about it, right? Very little to complain about that win streak, but what you also said, Tom, over the course of this win streak is we're still going to see the way you said, those peaks and valleys, right? But Utah needs to do is to be able to manage that better, so we're not seeing things slump very low. A game like this, it does happen to every team. But
yes,
it does happen like this to every team. But I will say, in the manner it's how Utah is going to respond. They have a few days off. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but they have a few days off, and we're going to see how they respond, and that's going to be the testament of a good hockey team.
This was a grueling road trip. It really was. And they still took 3 out of 4. We're going to talk about that. We're going to take a look back at the trip. We are going to talk about the gap that's coming up here. And Robyn is bringing the charts and graphs. We are going to get into it graphically, maybe a couple of fancy stat drops in there as we break down the unfortunate loss to Edmonton, but the end of a pretty darn good overall road swing. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, in case you didn't notice, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But look, let's be real. Tickets can be a total headache. Trying to get those between waiting in queue, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when really all you want to do is cheer on the Mammoth. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you pay. I've been a big fan of that. I love that about Game Time. There's no hidden fees at checkout. You see the dollar figure on it. Plus, I'm a big fan of being able to check my seat view. Delta Center, that's a pretty valuable tool. You can take a look and see exactly what you're going to see from those seats. Also, there's zone deals, game changers. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Back here on Locked On Mammoth, Tom Callahan and Robyn Leaño. Hey, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're still here, you like the show, doesn't cost you a penny, and it gets you more great Locked On hockey action every single day, 5 times a week. Again, thanks for making us your first listen. We love having the everydayers chiming in here. We're building a big community, and we want you to be part of it. Robyn, overall on the win streak comes to an end. 3-1 on the road trip. This is a tough one against Edmonton tonight with the 6-3 final. I'm not really going to hang much on the goaltending here because I don't think that that's fair, but you've got a really good visual representation of how this game went. And I want to get into that right now and have you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your analysis here.
Yeah, absolutely. And all everydayers know I love to bring up the game flow chart because I really think it tells a story of how a game goes and who's really taking control of the game. I'm bringing it up here, and as you can see on the lower half of this chart is the Mammoth on their Corsi, and then on the upper half is Edmonton's. As the game goes, now I'm trying to explain this for the audio guys. As the game goes in the first period, you can see Utah is actually getting a really good control of the game. They're dominating, and as you said, Tom, amazing first period. That's how they were able to control the game. 2-0 to 2-goal lead to start that game. Second frame starts, you see Edmonton's first goal and a sharp drop going where Utah tries to respond, and then after that, you see it starts to climb up very sharply in favor of Edmonton, and Utah just could not control the game back after that.
It's really interesting the way the momentum just swung back toward the Oilers, even when Utah got its goal, as we mentioned, and it put him back up there. Edmonton scores, first of all, right away in the period, 22 seconds in. I mean, that was the playbook for Edmonton. Get out there, get a quick one. Boom, they did. Then they score another one, 3:13, and they're in it. They're tied. Now, Hayton does get that gift on the giveaway, but then after that, you get Draisaitl and then Emberson, and those are the identical goals that were, 37 seconds apart, Robyn. Same play off the goaltender's pad to the dot, and we have the heat map up now on the YouTube side, but 3 goals were scored from that right face-off dot in that circle, and that is it's a good place to shoot from. No, it's not prime real estate in the middle of the slot, but what they were doing is they were they were moving the puck laterally away from the goaltender, having made a save on one side. The rebound goes over to the other side. It's a real tough puck to stop at that point. Veg would have had to do something heroic. Wasn't able to do it either time.
Some goalies do it, and the more often you'll see saves like that, those outstretched, insane saves, or like playoff level saves, always makes me think. And this is a callback going now dating back solid, almost 15 years, Tom. But you remember I just remember this goaltender's performance specifically, but Tim Thomas in the 2011 Stanley Cup final, like I saw the way he stretched out like with a stick sometimes and would just and I'm like, that's an athletic goalie right there. Like playoff hockey makes it different. It hits differently for those goaltenders, but yes, you're right. Those are hard to save.
Yeah. So and again, I can't really fault the goaltending. I think those are defensive miscues, and that's the thing is Edmonton runs you into commotion. That's what they do when they're effective. They buzz all over the zone. They move the puck. They are totally just everybody's rotating around.
You're right. It's come out quick, and then as I mentioned, and it forced Utah to start chasing.
Yeah.
And it forced Utah to not be able to play their game. That's what I said in the earlier on, right? It's because they're not able to play their game. They're not able to force the shots to the perimeter. They're not able to be more a forechecking presence. They're not able to get as many of those quality shots on. And that's why I brought the heat map back up too, talking about not being able to force the perimeter shots on the opponent. Because notice how, and as you said, Tom, a lot of those shots are up front, right down low, rather, versus towards the outside.
A lot of the goals are scored from in close. And that's where you're going to put those pucks home from. And that is one of the unfortunate parts, Rob. And I think when we take a look at, the effectiveness of an Edmonton Oilers type of team, how they generate all that offense so quickly is just they flood those pucks to the net. They get to the rebounds. They overwhelm you down low. And that's really where it is on the forwards to help out the defense. I thought for the most part on this road trip, that the forwards have done a very, very good job of playing a 5-man unit defensive structure. But I think Edmonton broke it down tonight. And it would be very easy for me to blame a lot of Utah defensively in this, but I think it's more of a credit to the Oilers and the way they play the game than anything else. And this is why they frustrate so many teams, not just Utah. They frustrate a ton of teams doing this.
Mm-hmm. And what I found was really interesting was how personnel-wise, what Edmonton's decision was to match up with Utah. And I think that's kind of what ended up breaking them up a little bit, right? Because we talked about McDavid and Draisaitl, right? How they're usually like a 1-2 punch. What I saw, it's interesting where you had McDavid out there trying to control on the offensive side, again, like straight up against the Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton line, and then Draisaitl up against the pickup line.
Yeah. And, sometimes you'll see McDavid and Draisaitl on the same line. A lot of times they're split. But sometimes when Edmonton gets a little desperate and a little thirsty, they will put them both together. But they didn't have that problem tonight. And McDavid now scores that 5th goal at the end of the period. And it's like, uh-oh. Oh, no. And he did tag on an empty netter later on, but McDavid was getting his chances, and you could tell he's been ready to break through for a while now, and he did.
Yeah, he wanted. You could tell he wanted to wake up. He didn't want to wait until half the season like last time.
Yeah, exactly. He thought it'd be better to put it in gear because there was a point where Tuna almost scored tonight, and it had a shot that was just tipped away in front, and I forget who it was on the broadcast. One of the two guys, one of them said, geez, Tuna would have one more goal than McDavid if he'd have scored there. Like, and then Connor McDavid probably heard that and said, oh, geez, I can't be outscored by Liam O'Brien. So, yeah, he ended up picking it up. But overall, Robin, 3-1 on the road trip, though. I think that's a positive and something I want to get into here, talk a little bit about that, because now the Mammoth actually have a couple of days off. This is a challenging road swing, 4 games in 6 days with some travel Not the easiest way to go about it, but I mean, they do pretty well for themselves, and now a chance to rest up a little bit here. Back here on Locked On Mammoth, Tom Callahan and Robyn Leaño here with you. Hey, tell your friends about the show. We always appreciate the support, every like, every comment. We absolutely try to respond to everybody. You can also reach out to us on social media as well. But you know what? We really appreciate hearing from you here. And on the audio side, feel free to tell your favorite personal assistant to please play the latest episode of the Locked On Mammoth podcast. So, Robyn, overall on the trip, 3-1, not bad for the Utah Mammoth. As a matter of fact, and you're more optimistic. I said 2-1-1. You actually said, okay, I feel 2-1-1, but it could go 3-1. And I said, oh, really? Okay. You were right. 3-1.
And you know what was interesting, though, Tom, is in my prediction, though, I didn't imagine it'd go to the last game as the one. I actually thought Winnipeg was going to be the loss, and they'd actually sneak a win against Edmonton.
Oh, okay. But they do beat Winnipeg. That's a huge win.
Which I think is even I think would made it even all that more impressive because that's a divisional rival. That's you wanted that win. That was all that more important.
4-point game. As a matter of fact, all those were 4-point games, right? St. Louis, Minnesota, Winnipeg, all those are 4-point games. Those were huge wins. And Robyn, quite frankly, they look pretty good against those divisional opponents.
They did. And to me, it gives me an optimistic viewpoint for this Utah team in this season as a member of the Central Division. Because I feel like, yes, the Central Division is going to be very tough. But if that's a glimpse of what Utah can put up against their Central Division rivals, it gives me a hope that they got what it takes to make a playoff push.
Boy, if only. That would be absolutely fantastic if they're able to do that. But now they're coming home and have an unusual little bit of a gap in the schedule here. They actually don't play again until the weekend. So the last game of the trip is on Tuesday. They'll be home basically early Wednesday morning-ish. And I would imagine, I don't know this, but I would imagine probably Wednesday off for the team. Then they'll get back to practice Thursday, Friday, kind of getting ready. So, but they have some time to work on some things. And I think they can go over that second period film and really kind of dig into that if they can. But doing a lot of successful things. The interesting thing now, Robyn, is trying to get rest for some guys with some bumps and bruises here. And just, it's a little maintenance window, if you will, because they're only playing one game at home and then they're right back out on the road, an Eastern road swing that'll take them through some Canadian cities, plus a visit to Buffalo. It's not an easy part of the schedule right now. So this rest is actually pretty huge for them.
It is huge for them. And honestly, I feel like after this loss, this time off couldn't have come at a better time. As you said, you get those maintenance days. You allow them to kind of rest up a little bit, get what they need, get what they need to get healthy or whatever it might be. Because come Sunday, you play host to Tampa Bay.
That's going to be a big one. Tampa Bay is a team. They've got, again, look, they're a team. You look at them and go, they're old, but they're good.
Yeah,
they're deep. And they always find a way to be competitive. They have one of the best coaches in the game, in my opinion, in John Cooper, and who's probably a future Hall of Fame coach. Robyn, being able to game plan a little bit for that too. And kind of now, this is the other weird thing about this little stretch. They are going to see a steady diet of Eastern opponents.
It's the Atlantic swing.
I thought you were going to say it's the Atlanta Thrasher swing for a second.
No, the Atlantic Division swing.
This is nuts though, Robyn. I'm looking at the schedule, and for 2 straight weeks, they do not see a team in the Western Conference, let alone the division. November 2nd through November 14th, they play Tampa, Buffalo, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo again, this time in Utah as they come back home for 2, and they host the Islanders. That's crazy for a Western team. I don't know how the schedule worked out that way, but that is strange. You don't see that.
It is strange. I'm looking at it. I'm like that, especially too because I know a lot of people love the Western Division, Western Conference rivals, right? Because you only see Eastern once, and again, most of this is on the road, but even then,
yeah, it's unusual. By the way, that Sunday game against Tampa Bay is 1:30, so make sure you know that 1:30 on Sunday for that game. Make sure you're prepared.
Next couple of weeks, though, I think we need to do a little bit check on the donors, see how they're doing, because
they made the front page of the newspaper. I mean, good for them. That's awesome. You guys are doing great work.
The influence donors are doing great is absolutely amazing, and but it will be interesting because when they play Buffalo twice in the next couple of weeks, once in Buffalo and once at home, we'll see the level of reaction, especially since Josh Jones is doing so freaking well in Buffalo, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He is. He's starting to pick it up a little bit.
Although, did you see that there are some people who are saying that because of that, Buffalo won the trade? And I'm like, no, I don't think that's necessarily accurate. I think that's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of questions surrounding Kesselring coming back from injury.
Correct.
Yet he hasn't played yet in Buffalo, so they're going to probably elevate him to a top pair. But the Sabres aren't off to an awful start. Alex Lyon has actually played well in net for them. They've been dealing with some injuries.
We'll do a preview for that game when we get closer to it. But
yeah,
just wanted to put that out there. I'm just happy for Down.
Yes, absolutely. So, Robyn, I'll tell you what, it's been an awful lot of fun, following this team through the win streak. The win streak is over. A little bit of pressure comes off. They got time for rest. And now you and I have time. We can even take some time and do a mailbag show coming up here. So if anybody has questions for us, you can always fire them off to us. And maybe we'll pick an off day here towards the end of the week and we'll do a mailbag. So, Robyn, where can folks find us if they want to shoot us some questions on social?
Yeah, on social media, you can find us just about everywhere. You can either DM the show over on Twitter at Locked On Mammoth, You'll get a more immediate response there versus any other platform. But you can find us anywhere else, like Threads, Instagram, on Blue Sky, on TikTok, wherever. You can find me personally at Robyn_Leaño, also very active on Twitter. For the email, folks, if email is your preferred method of talking to us, you can email us a mailbag question as well that is lockedonutahhockey@gmail.com.
And you can always find me on Blue Sky at Tom Talks and on Twitter at Callahan on Air. We thank you so much, as always, for checking us out. We appreciate it very much. For Robyn, I'm Tom. We'll talk to you next time on Locked On Mammoth.